Hi everyone, this is Tuplex. Welcome back. So the game's been running another couple hours and things are looking pretty good. Let's look at the last hour of production. Now usually when I'm trying to see if I'm hitting my science goals, it's easier to do this with a very long time frame at first. Let's see. There's gray science, military science. Usually I judge my success or failure based on consumption of science packs, just because consumption is a lot more consistent than production is. Production depends a lot on when the trains go to pick things up and drop things off. But if you can sustain the same amount of consumption for a long time, then you know that you're doing things right. So this is the last hour and we're averaging 2.5K, which is the goal. Now you can see here that it's been swinging up and down, right? It's oscillating a bit. It peaks at about 2.6 when we have a fresh delivery of space science. And then it starts to run out and then the next train arrives. Right, it starts to run out. Some of the labs don't get any because it's up on the belt. And then the next train arrives and it ramps back up again. And that's okay because clearly with the number of labs that I have, I can run 2.6K nonstop. But I don't need to. I only need 2.5. And as we showed in the last episode, I've got my rocket launches on a timer to achieve exactly 2.5. All right, so everything's working fine. Military science at the moment is not included. I haven't done any military research for a long time, right? Since about 10 hours ago. Or sometime, no, it's more like 4 hours ago. But fairly soon I will be turning that on, because the base is designed to make military science as well as all the other ones. Okay, so I've reinstalled auto research, but right now it's called auto research redistributed because the auto research mod did not get updated to version 18 yet. So somebody else took it on and is providing the redistributed version of the mod in the meantime. Okay, so I've got that working. So what I'm going to do is fire that up. Right now I have it only doing mining productivity, right? But what I would like to do is remove that from the queue and allow auto research just to research whatever is available. And that means that it's going to be researching stuff like energy weapons damage and flammables and, you know, all the military stuff. Robot follower count. Lots of stuff that's kind of useless to me right now. But I do want to show that we can do space science as well. Maybe what I can do instead, because I think realistically, well, if I had biters, I would probably not be doing follower robot count or explosives, right? Or physical weapons. I would probably be doing artillery, energy weapons, and flammables, right? For laser turrets, flamethrower turrets, and artillery. And I would throw in worker robot speed every once in a while too. So let's add these into the queue. Artillery range, artillery shooting speed, energy weapons damage, and refined flammables. And this other stuff we'll leave out. Okay, so this will simulate only research queued. Now, actually, if I have a queue, I don't know how it's going to manage these. Maybe I need to clear the queue completely. All right, so let's see if I remove those. Ah, okay, good. Yeah, so I want to blacklist that research, and then I'll clear the queue. So let's wait for mining productivity 35 to finish, and then I'll clear the queue, and we'll see how it works. Okay. While we're waiting for that, I can go down my list and show you the things that I wanted to show you. All right, so the first of those is the train deployment station, which I've set up down here. Now, you remember previously whenever I needed more trains, I would set them up here in the refueling station kind of manually and then send them off. Well, I decided I needed to automate this somewhat. So I set up this station just for deploying new trains. And then I made a blueprint, which just consists of 8 trains. Right, so I can put that down. The bots will set up the trains, they'll get fuel, and then they're all waiting here ready for me to send them off to wherever I think that they're needed. If I needed fluid wagons, I would probably want a second blueprint just for fluid wagons. But I haven't needed a lot of fluid wagons lately. Okay, so this way I can always have, with this setup, I can always have 8 trains ready to go whenever I need them. All right, and that's all that is. Oh, and I also made sure that when I made the blueprint, the trains don't have any schedule. And they didn't have any fuel in them, so that the bots don't feel compelled to bring fuel to the train itself, since I already have the chest there. All right, so that's all that is, but it makes things a little bit easier. Okay, next thing I ran into a little while ago is I ran into a bottleneck in the refineries with light oil. And what was happening is the light oil was backing up into these pipes, and as a result, my refineries were only running at about, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70% utilization, because they were continually stopping while they were waiting for the light oil to flow through the pipes. And so I went back and checked my calculations. Right, and this is what I was looking at before. I had 2 refineries. I had 1 machine making lubricant, 1 machine cracking heavy oil to light, and then 2 machines cracking light to petroleum gas. But again, that was with a hard limit set on the cracking. But if I remove the limit, then it doesn't work at all. Okay. Well, I don't know. I can't figure that. Oh, look. There's ingredients and byproducts. Oh, okay. That's because I set the 1 million. Okay. All right. Hang on. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. Set it back to 2. Okay. Right. So we're making 12,000 for light oil, and I was only consuming 11,789 light oil with the cracking. All right. So that was the problem. I was making a little bit more light oil than I was converting. And clearly I'm not using enough light oil for the engines or for the rocket fuel to make up for all the cracking, because these tanks would fill up frequently. Right, and I need to be able to consume all the light oil so that when these tanks are full, I'm still getting everything running at full speed. All right. So to make a long story short, what I did is on the other side of the light oil, or the petroleum loading station, I added 2 more machines that are cracking light oil into petroleum gas. I probably would have been okay with just 1 machine, but I thought that I would balance it on both sides. Right, so now the light oil comes down, it feeds into these machines, and then the pipe just continues down here and feeds into these. All these machines load the tanks on this side of the rail, and these machines load the tanks on the other side of the rail, and then these machines can also overflow into these tanks with this pump. Okay, so this way we're able to consume all the light oil, and it also accelerates our petroleum production slightly. Now when you want to load fluids from both sides of the wagon, you have to make sure that the pumps are not in that same highlighted area on the wagon, right? You can't have 2 pumps like that, for example, or even like that. There are three of those highlighted areas per cargo wagon, and you can only have 1 pump on each. So at the most, you can have 3 pumps feeding a tanker. All right, so I made that change there. I made the same change on the second refinery, and that took care of my bottleneck. The reason I found that bottleneck is because the petroleum depot was empty. And that's essentially how I'm looking for bottlenecks in the base right now. I'm looking at all the depots, and I'm just looking to see if any of them are empty. Right? And as of now, everything looks good. There's stuff in all the depots. Okay, so we got the mining productivity done. Let me check that off, and then we'll go on to the next one. All right, so let's remove that from the queue. Okay, and then that'll allow these other researches to get done. And it's set to balanced. Like you could tell it either to research the cheapest techs first, the fastest ones first, the slowest ones, the most expensive, do them in a random order. When you choose balanced, I don't know exactly how it chooses it, but anyway, some of the less expensive technologies are going to get researched for a while, since I've been doing almost nothing but mining productivity most recently. Okay. And by doing this, I'm sure we'll start to see the consumption of military science packs increase. Some of the other ones may decrease. Right? Energy Weapons 8, for example, doesn't use purple science packs. Actually, none of Energy Weapons will use purple science packs. And neither will flammables. So I think I'm going to blacklist those too. We'll just wait for that one to finish. I really want to just be using all 7 science packs. But I'll tell you, from the looks of things, follower robot count is the only one that uses all 7 science packs. Everything else only uses 6. And I really don't want to do follower robot count over and over again. It seems kind of silly. So maybe when I expand, maybe I'll just skip military research. Let's just queue up mining productivity, and let's just stick with that. All right, so I think when I go to the next phase, I'm not going to include military science. We'll do the other 6. Because why build up all that military science when I don't really need it? And I guess in the next series, whatever the next series is, I'll put biters in there. I don't know. I just have this love-hate relationship with the biters. I hate them. Well, yeah, I guess there's no love involved. Usually I just hate them. What's going on here? Oh, there's 2 trains there? Why did it call 2 trains? That's strange. Why don't you go back to the depot? Now the other thing you can do is you can look here for outstanding requests. Right now there's only 1, so that's a good sign. If you see a lot of requests that have been open for a long time, you know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then that's a good indication that you've got some bottlenecks. Okay, well I don't know why this is asking for 2. P minus 1. I think I might have to go and rebuild that thing. I'm going to have to go rebuild that station. Or a reset. Every once in a while, TSM seems to get a little bit out of whack. Oh, now where did it go? Oh, this is the second one. Okay. All right, well, let's wait and see what happens. I did just update the mod, so maybe the update caused some things to get kind of screwy. I'll just leave it for a while and see if it settles back in. Okay. The other bottleneck that I had to address was with copper plate. So again, I was looking at my copper plate depot. It was almost always empty. You know, trains would come in, they would stop, and then they would immediately leave. It seemed that low density structures was the part of the factory that was consuming the most and always seemed to be short. And even now, I can't seem to keep these belts full. Even though I've got 2 trains coming into each one, even though I'm trying to balance the belts, they're not really balanced. Right? I wish I could use loaders. I mean, I guess I could use loaders. You know, to empty chests without worrying about lane balance. It's just kind of a pain to deal with lane balance all the time. And it does slow things down. You know, when you've got a chest that, right, like this chest has 3.2K in it. I don't know, maybe I just need to throw some inserters between the chests and have them keep the 2 chests balanced. I don't know. I think that's just going to slow things down. I suppose as long as I'm getting enough product, I don't need to worry about it, right? That's the ultimate goal. So in any case, I was running out of copper, so I had some ore trains sitting in the depot, so my conclusion was that I needed more copper plate smelting. This square was empty, so I put a 3rd copper smelter over here. Okay, which is now running happily. So now here in the depot, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are going to the first refinery, I've got 5 going to the second one and 5 going to the third one. Now, I also put these additional depots for copper and iron ore to feed the circuit production. And then this smelter is pulling from this second depot, not from this one. Okay, so this depot is only feeding, I guess it's only feeding these two. And occasionally it'll feed these if this depot is empty. Okay, so the way that I did that is I created a new priority schema for copper ore called number 2. And in that one, I assigned it 2 stations. The first one is the 2 depot, and the second one is the 1 depot. And my understanding of how this works is that in a case like this, it'll always pull from the first one in case there's no train available. And in that case, it'll pull from the second one. Okay, so these 4 grid sections here are using the copper 2, and then these 3 are using the iron 2 schema so that they get filled from these unless there are none available, and then it'll pull from this one or from this one. Now I can see that this one is struggling to keep up. And I've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. I've got 22 trains assigned to it, which is 2 more than it can actually hold. But I do seem to be consuming a lot of iron, and I think it's because I did that little bit of military science and it emptied a couple of steel trains. Right, so now I need more steel, and that's pulling a lot of the iron ore. So that could end up slowing me down a little bit. And for each of these mines, I have enough trains assigned. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right, so over here, for example, I have 12 trains and 4 stacker lanes. So I could assign up to 16 trains here, and they would all have a place to land. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've only got 12. So I could assign 4 more trains to number 3 and depot 1. So I think I'm going to do that. Okay, so 3 load until full, and then depot 1 until circuit condition. 3, 4, and then I'll send them all off. And really, I can assign even more trains than that because most of the time the trains are not going to be here, right? In fact, the trains are never going to be waiting here. I think what I really have to be careful of is that I have enough space at the depots. But I can definitely overload the mining outposts. These are filling up really fast now that we've got more productivity done. Because most of the time the lanes are going to be empty. So right now if I need more ore, I can just keep adding more and more trains to the mining outposts. So here I only have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I could add 4 more trains to Iron Mine 2. But for now I'll wait and I'll see if this stabilizes. I may need to add more lanes to the depots so that they can hold more trains. Alright, let's look at our production again. Alright, so this is where we did that little military thing and it screwed up my numbers a little bit on purple. But so far so good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to let the game run. I think what I'm going to shoot for is to hit 2.5K on the 10-hour average. And once I do that, then I think I'll declare victory, and then we can move on to something else. Right, 1 hour is not that long. Oh, I added this neat little colored bar here so I could visually see how close I'm getting to the end of my timer. Right, so when it gets all the way to the last screen, then we're pretty close. 11,000, another couple seconds, and we should see a launch. There we go, and then the timer resets. Let's go over there and I'll show you how that works. Because I know some of you may be curious how to set up something like that. It's actually pretty simple. Yeah, I'll just park here. Okay, copper plate bottleneck was explained. The other thing was water. Okay, my water depot was often down to a single train or no trains. And I was finding that the loading of the water was a little bit slow. These pumps don't put out quite as fast as I needed it. So I just added a second water loading station. It has the same name as the first. So the trains will come in and the train it'll usually go to the first one since that's closest. But then if there's a train there and another one comes in, it can go to the second one. Right, so the second one's all hooked up here. The first one's all hooked up here. I had to use 2 pumps between the tanks because because these pipes are here, I didn't have enough room to put the second tank after 1 pump like I have here. So I just chained 2 pumps together. Serves the same purpose. And then I increased the size of the stacker to hold more trains, and I added a bunch more depot lanes. So I've got now 9 trains moving water, and that seems to be more than enough. Okay, so those are all the changes that I've made to fix bottlenecks and optimize things. I haven't really done anything else besides just watching, and I did add a bunch more Roboports to my armor, but I'm keeping the number of bots the same. So this will allow my bots to recharge faster because I just have a lot more charging points. Okay, so this little timeline here, I just put 9 lights in a row, and I connected them all with the red wire to the output of my timer. Okay, so they can all read what the current number of ticks is since 0. And we already know that it goes up to 11,520. Right, so I took that number and divided it by 9. Let's wait for it to launch, because we never get tired of seeing rocket launches. Okay. All right, so these are all hooked up to the output of the timer so that they can read the time. And then I just set them up so the first one turns on when the timer has gone past 1,152, which is 1/9 of the total amount of time. And then the second one turns on at 2.3, 3.4, 4.6, and so forth, all the way up the ladder until we get to 10,368. Okay, so that tells each light when to turn on. So this is the first one to turn on, and then they just progressively turn on as we get closer to the end of the timer. Now for the colors, I just put 3 constant combinators with the different colors that I want, and then those are connected with a green wire. Okay, so the red one is connected to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the yellow I connected to the next 3, and then the green I connected to these 2. And then all you do is you just tell it to use colors. And so the first color signal that the lights get will tell it what color to illuminate. So that's all that takes to get a little colored indicator display like that. All right, next one will go on at 6.9. Around there. There it goes. And so on and so forth. Okay. So pretty basic, but that way I can look on the map and I can see how close we are to the next launch without having to hover over the timer and look at the number. I might even try to do a digital display at some point. Actually, I think I have a blueprint for one. Display. Indeed I do. Okay, shall we try it? Okay, I need another 140 lights. Let's go get more lights. And we'll set up a digital display to do this. I think that'll be even cooler. It won't be colored. Oh, that's not my train. Anyway, I had a blueprint for that because I don't know how to do it myself. Where did I get it? I don't remember. I think I found it on factorioprints.com, but I don't remember. But essentially you feed it a number and it can handle up to 4 digits. So I think in our case, we'll only do 2 digits. Let me get more lights anyway. I'll just grab them myself. Where am I making the lights? Here we go. Right, if we're going to do a percentage, then we only need 2 digits to go from 0 to 99. So what we'll do, we'll take the timer output, we'll divide it by the 1, I'll multiply it by 100 and then divide it, because I don't know if the combinators deal with decimals, with numbers less than 1 very well. Okay, so now instead of this, I'll hook my timer up to it, right? So that's the current number we got, so it's pretty slick. All right, so I'm going to take 2 arithmetic combinators. Let's disconnect that. And we'll connect it instead here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to input T, and I'm going to multiply by 100. Output as T. And then I'm going to input T, and I'm going to divide it by 11,520. And output as T. And that should give us a percentage from 0 to 99. Yeah. And actually, let's move this. Let's move this up here to be aligned with my other display. And then I can just grab that red signal right there. There. How cool is that? I'll try to find the blueprint and link it in the description. But if you go to factorioprints.com or even just Google Factorio digital display, you're going to find lots and lots of different designs. A lot of people have done things like that. And in fact, people have even made like actual digital displays that can deal with more than numbers. I think this one can do... Yeah, I think this one only does numbers, but there are others that can do text. There are others that can do graphics. You know, you can load a bitmap. There's even some that will play movies. There's a video on YouTube of somebody who made a giant display that did the video for Sandstorm or something like that. All right. So that's good. What else shall we talk about? Right? I mean, as long as I'm making 2.5, I don't really have much to worry about. Power is looking good. Okay, all my turbines are running. The base is being powered nicely. I've got plenty of fuel. My ratio is at 14, which is close to the optimum 13. I've got plenty of uranium coming in. So I don't see any problem keeping up with power requirements. Now when I go for 10K, it will need to be decided how I'm going to power the base. If I want to keep expanding nuclear, or if I want to do solar. The problem with doing solar is I'm going to need a huge infrastructure just to build it. Right? I mean, I'm consuming, let's call it 20 gigawatts now. If I go 4 times bigger than that, I'll need another 80. So that means I'll need 100 gigawatts of power in total. Which will be like another 12, let's say another 12 of these reactor cells. I mean, my UPS is fine. It hasn't really been affected at all. So maybe that won't be a problem. Let me know what you all think as far as power goes on the next expansion we do here. I mean, I think if I do solar, I would just have to start building at such a massive scale for it to make any difference at all. Not that that can't be done, but nuclear is compact and fairly easy to build at this point. I'm sure I would need another uranium mine. I would have to rebuild my uranium processing to have a higher capacity. I've got a few mines out there that I can tap into. Looks like there's some even bigger ones up here. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of uranium around, so that wouldn't be an issue. But I think I would probably want to rebuild this somewhere else on a much larger scale. The other thing I'm thinking is for a base of that size, I would probably want to redesign the grids to have 4 lanes instead of 2. And I would probably make the grids bigger. And I'm thinking I might want to have larger trains as well. Right? Instead of 4-8, maybe I would want to go 4-8, 4-8. Or 2-4, 2-4, 2-4, 2-4. That might make unloading and routing belts easier, you know, if they're spread out a bit. So that's what I'm thinking right now is double the rail, twice as many lanes, double the size of the trains, and then if I do that, I would probably want to double the size of the grids themselves as well. Because if I double the size of the train, it's not going to fit. Right, and the size of your grids definitely needs to be in tune with the size of your trains, because you want the trains to be able to fit between any 2 junctions to avoid traffic problems and gridlock. So that's what I'm thinking right now. Double the grid, double the trains, 4 times as much production, minus military science. And then with the grids twice as big, that would obviously require me to redesign a lot of this stuff. Or maybe I just make the grids twice as wide. I don't know. Because let's say my grid was twice as big. Well, a lot of my size, or a lot of the challenges I had building what I have now is just squeezing enough belts into these little beacon squares, right? So if I were to make this twice as big, going this way, I mean, how am I ever going to get enough belts to squeeze down there to get up there? Now, if the train was twice as long, I had twice as many cargo wagons, I could leave the height the same, which means that my belts the number of belts per column would not have to change. I would just have twice as many columns. But then, you know, instead of having a grid like this, pipes are not the best thing to use for this. All right, so let's say that these are my grids, right? So instead of having grids like this, I would have grids like this. Twice as wide, same height. That would probably be okay. And then we could even do them like Nilaus is doing on his base, where he's got them offset into like a brickwork sort of a pattern. Well, again, let me know your thoughts. I haven't quite decided yet how I want to do that. And we have about 10 hours with no problems to decide. Okay, so it'll take, I'll have to wait until this drops off the graph before my 1 hour graph is going to recover on Purple Science. But so far I don't really see any problems in maintaining this for the next 10 hours because everything is running smoothly. I haven't seen any traffic problems for some time. My ore patches are not going to run out. The only thing that could possibly impact me would be if I ran out of uranium where I'm at now, but that's easy to fix if that were to occur. How much have I got left? 3.7 million. Let's see. I need 600 a minute. So 3.7 million divided by 600 is 6,166 minutes divided by 60. All right, so I can run 102 hours on the amount of ore that I've got here. And of course, it's going to last a lot longer than that because we're getting mining productivity on that stuff too. Right, I'm at 360% productivity right now, so I'm getting 3.5 pieces of ore for, well, I'm getting 4.6 pieces of ore for every production cycle on the mining drills. Actually, let's go take a look at a mining drill so I can show you. So as the game progresses, the consumption of the ore from the ground is going to continually decrease, and the speed of loading the trains is going to continually increase. All right, so this is how fast we're loading now. It's pretty quick. Right, it's still not as fast as having 6 inserters load the wagon, I don't think. But it's not far off, and once we get, you know, I think once we get to mining productivity 50 or 60 around there, these trains will be loading faster than they would in a traditional mine that was using chests and inserters. Yeah, I mean, you can barely even see this. What if we take those modules out? So you can see that the productivity bar is advancing 3 or 4 times for every normal mining cycle. Right, so that means that 3.7 million ore that I have on the ground is actually going to give me about 4 times as much ore when I mine it. Okay, so to make a long story short, it's going to be a very long time before I run out of uranium at my current rate of production, and it's only going to get better and better as the game runs and my mining productivity goes to higher levels. So there's very little to worry about there. So I think at this point I'm just going to let the game run for the next 10 hours. I will check on it from time to time to make sure that I don't have any problems brewing, but the traffic is not bad at all. That's the advantage of using big trains and a grid. The grid gives the trains lots of paths to their destination. They don't all get funneled onto the same one or two sections of rail, and that makes the traffic automatically distribute itself, keeps congestion to a minimum. And of course, having large trains to begin with means that you don't need as many of them, and they travel less frequently. So the trains are good, power is good, production is fine, thanks to the good design work that we put into this along the way. So, like I said, I'll just let it run. I'll keep an eye on my depots, make sure none of them get empty. If I don't have to make any more changes, then the next episode will be the last one of the 2.5K SPM series. And at that point, I'll just do a recap and a base tour for anyone who who just wants to jump to the final result without seeing all the other stuff. And then after that, we'll start on, like I said, as of now, my plan is to do another expansion of the base. Well, not an expansion, really. We're going to go out somewhere else on the map and start building a bigger one from scratch on the same map. This one will continue to run. I'm going to need them all. But we'll start building a new grid that can support 10,000 a minute on top of the 2.5K that we're already doing. And we'll see how that goes. All right. So let me know your thoughts if you have any good ones. And I will see you next time. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.